Joining me today is a good friend of mine. She is currently the DOTR Railway Project Development Officer. A lot of things I want to learn about that. I knew her as a very, let's just say, very smart person back in college. She graduated summa cum laude. Tayag, what's up? Welcome to the show, and thanks for your time.
Hello, thank you for having me. Good to see you.
So you're not, great to see you, by the way. I don't know when was the last time, honestly. First, how's the work-life balance for you? Now this week we have just, yay, congrats, 1 year, baby, anniversary here in the lockdown.
Yeah.
How's everything?
Well, it's been a bit busier for us, definitely. It's we're all work from home. There was a time we went to work for like a week, but then eventually we all transitioned to work from home na rin. It's a bit stressful because I think a lot of people who working from home can resonate with this. Now there's just more work to be done, and there's more, I guess, expectation for you to work because you
have all the
aren't
time in the
really
world.
doing much. You're just at home. Yeah, exactly. So I think also it's difficult because there's no aspect or minimum aspect of work-life balance where you could, after work, you could go out, like chill, hang out with friends, all of that.
Totally.
Yeah, now it's just
yeah. But at least you have like an off. Like me, I can agree with you. This is my bedroom, so there's really not even a wall to separate that work life thing. You mentioned how it's busier now. I wanted to ask though, that you graduated summa cum laude. You were in ME, one of the hardest, toughest courses in Ateneo. Were you a workaholic in the sense that you're used to like having so much work? Because we were also org mates, and I know that you had different orgs also. So it wasn't like, even if your grades were high, it wasn't like that was the only thing you're doing. Would you consider yourself a workaholic from the days you were a student pa lang?
I'd say yes. In some ways, it's just that because I did say it a few times that I did like studying sometimes, so I do study hard. But then I also enjoy like doing orgs. Like as you said, we had training for CADs, which was something that I really enjoyed, and which was like a highlight of my college experience, definitely. And then we had other orgs pa. I was involved in like Tugon for a time and Kai. So I think I would say I tried to involve myself in a lot of things, but especially like in a lot of different things with different aspects, not just like ACADS, not just dance, but just try to be more engaged in other areas.
Yeah. Now though, you're working and you're working for the government. How different is it now that because before we're studying really hard for our grades, for our parents, diba? Because your org has this project, but now you're working with and for the government, for like you're taking care of the country, and this is not. I mean, I wouldn't want to say there's any like department that is above another, but the fact that it's transportation and it's like everybody talks about this. Every single Filipino knows and experiences traffic. Like we face the problems that you guys have to deal with on a daily basis. There's even something I watched your interview, and there was an SWS survey that says 9 out of 10 Filipinos want better public transportation. I want to ask, who the heck is that 1 out of 10 people who are like, nah, that's cool. Our public transportation's fine. So how is that? How is that like working for the government with, and specifically transportation?
Yeah, it's definitely busy. I think because of the build program of the current administration, there's a lot of push towards building all of these new transportation systems. Specifically for me, I'm in railways, so there is a lot of push towards building more rail lines, especially since right now we only have like 77 kilometers total of railway, and we envision to have by like 2025 at least 1,900 kilometers of rail lines.
Wait, sorry. Can you run me the numbers again? Right now we are at did you
77.
77, and you want by 2025 1,000?
Okay, wait, yeah.
Wow.
But at least by 1,000 200, sorry, 1,200. So
Okay.
77 to 1,200
Damn.
by then. So
Uh-huh.
it's a big undertaking, and the scale, I think we've said it a bunch of times. This is the largest railway, I guess, pipeline that we've had in a really, like, ever. So
Ever.
the scale is, yeah, ever, because yeah, we only have 77 kilometers for um running rail lines, and by then it's ideally by 2025, or yeah, or maybe a few years after, at least by 2025, these will be either operational or under construction, or yeah, basta under implementation already by then.
Yeah.
So it's
The,
massive, and because of that, it's pretty busy at work,
I can
since
imagine. Yeah,
yeah.
I can imagine. The administration now, we have this whole build.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yes.
how to say it, movement. Uh,
Program.
program. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
BBB
it
program.
something? Was that what sort of enticed you to go to transportation in the government?
Actually, not particularly. I think it was an aspect, but not really. So, I guess I'll share how I got into DOTR in the first place. So, after we graduated, I really wanted to go into government. So, a few of my like my college parang idols, like the people I looked up to in college, they did go to government after, who were also my course mates. But most of them went to like DOF, ganon, and then so I was looking at jobs in like
That's where the
Department of
money is.
Finance. Yeah, exactly. And it's more related, I guess, to my course, like the ME. So I
Oh
was
yeah.
looking also at Banco Central, and where else did I apply? Bureau of Treasury and all of that. So I was looking at those. But then one of my friends, who was very involved in government, who went to government also after college, he introduced me to all these different people. And he said, "Oh, why don't you try DOTR, just for an interview?" So I went there. Like I really wasn't expecting much, because I was like, wow, transportation, like it's, I don't know, like you have that stigma na parang, oh, it's super traffic, it's all of that. Like
Yeah.
what are they doing
And the
about it? Diba?
LRTs, they keep breaking,
Yeah,
all those things.
exactly. Yeah, so that was my first impression, but I was like, okay, you might as well just meet with them. And then when I met with them, it was so, I guess, different. They started talking about all of these like rail lines that they're planning. Like the first thing they told me was,
Oh,
"Oh,
the
they showed
plans.
me, yeah, they showed me like, oh, parang drawings of the Clark to Calamba rail line." And I was like, "Wow, I didn't even know that existed." And they were saying, "Oh, they were gonna revive the line all the way until Bicol, and then they had like a Subic Clark railway, a Mindanao railway." And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And the subway, especially the subway, like I was just hearing about it before, and I didn't realize that it was actually happening. And for me, it was because I really like trains. Like that's the thing
Oh,
about me,
really?
that
Like Sheldon.
yeah,
Sorry, you know Sheldon from Big Bang
yeah,
Theory.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
just, you're fascinated by trains. Okay.
yeah, I've always been fascinated about
Mm-hmm.
by trains. Like every time we go abroad, I'm like the family navigator, so I always like studying the subway lines and just navigating from one
Oh.
spot to another. So that, like, I was really interested. And then when I found out that they were planning something like that in the Philippines, and in Manila, I was so excited. Parang wow, I didn't even realize that it was in the plans, and not just plans, like it was already beginning by then. So from then, like my perspective completely changed, and I just decided, I think that's super exciting, and I would really um that's where I can contribute, and that's where parang, and it was something that I actually enjoyed also, and so I thought it would be a perfect fit for me, I guess, to go into DOTR. Yeah.
Wow. Quick question though. Do you
Mm-hmm.
have a favorite country of like which, not just subway but like public
Mm-hmm.
transportation like system? Do you have like a favorite one in your experiences
Hmm.
of traveling?
um I I've always liked the New York subway, just because it was so fascinating to me how you could have so many like layers of trains
Yeah.
underground. There's like four different lines, all like patong-patong lang na ganon. It was so interesting lang na, like, it was such an intricate system, and you don't even see it when you're walking on the street, something
Yeah.
like that. So I've always liked the New York subway, even like ever since I was young, and like even if it's like dirty na and smelly or whatever, it was
Mm-mm.
like I enjoyed riding the
Oh,
subway
but it
just because.
works. I think that's the
Yeah,
most
yeah, yeah.
important part. It's efficient. You
Exactly.
get where you need to go
Yes,
in
yes.
pretty manageable amount of
Mm,
time.
true.
You know, when it comes to like government projects and things that the government does, I feel like this is the one dito ako kinikilig the most I'd have to say with
Mm,
the transportation kasi yung nga every single Filipino has to go through this on a daily basis. When you entered though, so you did that, you did the interview, you talked to the guys in DOTR, you heard all the plans. Did you have any like preconceived notions going in? Any like assumptions on what it's like in working in government
yeah.
in general?
Yeah, I guess going in, I did not know what to expect. Like I
Uh-huh.
had no idea at all how what it would be like. Um I guess like I what happened? So the first time, parang my first day, it was so interesting. My first day was a breakfast buffet
Oh.
in Shangri-La Fort. And I was
Oh.
like, what? Yeah.
Sign me up.
Um
Okay.
yeah, I know. But then after that it kind of went downhill from there.
This is it.
But I
This
was
is the
so
good life.
surprised. I was like,
Oh.
yeah. Cause I went in as the executive assistant to the undersecretary for railways. So the
Uh-huh.
USEC was my boss, and then he took me to one of his breakfast meetings. And yun, parang it was in Shangri-La Fort. And I was like, wow, I could get used to this,
Oh
diba?
yeah.
Um,
It's like you just went in finance. Kasi I mean I
yeah.
that's what I'm exposed to. And I know that there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of nice
Yeah.
hotel breakfast stuff that you can go to. Okay, and then
Yeah. But then it became so different because after that, so we went to a few meetings and I went to the office, and the office was super like old. It's not
okay.
it was our old office na parang it was old, parang the aircon was sira, and then parang we didn't even have our own desks. It was just a whole like one big desk, one big table lang, and then we had like chairs, parang dinner table ganon
Uh-uh.
type na that's where we would work. So I was like, those are two different, completely different sides. But then, yun, at the beginning, I entered when they were just, I guess, a bit starting out. Or parang pa-ramp up pa lang yung railway sector then. So we still didn't have enough resources yet back then. No resources yet. So, but after that, it got better. Like we transferred offices now where we actually had desks, our own desks
Yeah.
now. Mga ganun. So it gets better eventually. And I think there's really just two sides of it. Now there are I guess more glamorous meetings because you meet with a lot of you do like you we go to DOF for example to have meetings there. We meet with embassies sometimes
Mm-hmm.
depending on the meeting. So we parang other organizations would take us out to dinner or to breakfast just like that breakfast meeting. So that would happen then. But most of the time it's really this it's a pretty tight, I guess, smallish organization. And
Yeah.
I would really compare it to more a startup, especially in the beginning
Really?
where yeah we didn't have much I guess not much structure then because it's very new. That's the thing. Yeah.
How it's wait, sorry, when you say new, like how new? Because I mean, people have been transporting themselves. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
we've needed transportation, right? I
Yeah.
mean, for a long time din
Yeah, yeah,
naman.
yeah. I think in general, previously in the previous administration, kasi the DOTR, I think was previously DOTC, and it was structured not
Oh.
sectorally. So there was no like right now, kasi there's a railway sector, aviation, maritime and road sector. And then but before they didn't have it. For example, they had like planning sector, then they had implementation, then
Oh.
planning,
So it's
implementation,
every kind of
operations.
like
Yeah.
vehicle, every mode of
Yeah, yeah,
transportation, isang
yeah,
team.
something like that. It's a team. And
Oh.
then when they moved to sectoral in I think in this organization, that's when that's where we kind of started as the railway sector. And my boss was saying in the beginning they were only like 15 people. And then
Huh.
now we're like 400. So
Oh.
back in the beginning, yeah, we got
Were
pretty
you sorry, were
big
you there when it
pretty
was just
quickly.
15 people or
No, no, no.
hindi
I
na?
entered, I was there, they were about 100 na ata.
Okay.
So
Oh,
it
early pa
wasn't,
naman.
yeah, early pa siya. Like compared to, if you compare it to the amount of projects we have, we really didn't have enough people pa back then. So there was also no structure. There was no parang, it was very flat. Na parang, oh, I'll just talk to my boss, the USEC for whatever I need, and then parang the a project handling like uh 700 billion peso project. They only had like 40 people, parang ganun. So
Wow.
it was very like everyone was kind of I guess overworked, and then I guess yun nga, wala masyadong structure pa back then. But now
Yeah.
we're putting in place lots of things. So I think the great part of it, like where we are now, is we're not just building the railways, but we're also building the organization itself. Like making sure that
Ooh,
the
yeah, oo nga, no?
yeah, that the organization can be able to serve and implement these projects, not just now, but also in the future for future
Yeah.
pipeline.
It's
Yeah.
nice though, because you're fixing the system of how our country's, transportation in general of our country. Yet at the same time, you're also fixing the system within your
Yeah.
organization, your department. Did you ever? I would imagine that when you first went there, oh, nice breakfast. Going back to your story, kanina, and
Mm-hmm.
then you didn't really have your own desk. There weren't that many people. Did you have any doubts, or like, did you ever have any moment of regret? Kasi um, as someone, I would say I am the quote unquote average Ateneo college graduate, meaning only a few people can sort of just pick what job they want. Like you have to be summa cum laude. You have to have all these. You are in the short list, I would say, of you can pick any job, kind of any job that you wanted. Yet you still went here to government. It's more normal, diba? You go Department of Finance, or you take
Yeah.
a nice high paying job in some multinational corporation. I just wanna dive into it a little more. Um the motivation you had behind going there. Because normally then people could be like, baka first few years, I'll go corporate muna. First few years, ba, I'll make some money for myself, which I feel like is. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If I had the choice, I probably would. If I had the skills and choice,
Yeah.
I probably would. But you really just went here. Let's go government. Let's go Department of Transportation. And have you had any like? Were there any moments that you were like, wait a minute?
Hmm. Yeah. I guess I'd say to the first part of your question, na what really made me go dive into government right away. I guess in the beginning it wasn't like parang coming out of college, or like in the, I guess in our last sem, like a lot of people were like interviewing already, looking for jobs. And for me, I really didn't know where I wanted to go. Like I wasn't sure pa. It took me, yeah, but I was medyo late na in applying for all of these jobs, and I
Mm-hmm.
took like a
Sorry, when
few
you say
months
when you
gap.
say late, what month was that?
I started really looking like in, ano ba yun? August or September na after we
Okay,
graduate.
gets
Yeah.
gets gets.
So but I was kind of decided na naman earlier. Parang it was actually the seniors retreat that we took. Like that was May, like a few weeks before grad. It was in seniors retreat where I
Was
was
this the
trying to
optional
figure out my
one?
life. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
the
that's why I
optional
was like,
one, right?
did I go to any seniors retreat? Wala yata. Okay, okay.
Yeah. It was open to whoever wanted to go. So I went to the senior street. It was in Tagaytay, and I remember that I was like looking at Taal Lake, and I was like, what? I was just thinking
Oh.
like, what am I gonna do with my life? Parang ganon. And I guess it just hit me na, I do want to be able to contribute more to the Filipino people. Like that's one thing that
That's good.
I think has been instilled in me from the, like, ever since I was a kid. And that's mostly because my dad has always been saying na it's a very Atenean saying. He said na parang wait, I'm trying to remember the actual line, but it was paraphrased from basically saying that where you should be is like the intersection of your heart's
Ooh.
greatest desire and the world's greatest need.
Yes,
And
yes.
so
My mom has read the same thing and has been
yeah.
preaching the same thing. The
Yeah,
ikigai.
exactly.
Is that
I
the
don't know. I don't
what's
think
that?
it's
The
ikigai, but
intersection. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But it's a lot of people talk about that concept, and so it's been instilled in me ever since I was a kid. And parang because my dad is a farmer son, and he grew up so my lola's a farmer, and he grew up not very wealthy, and so
Mhm.
he was really like rags to riches story. And so that story has always been instilled in me na when I grow up, I have been privileged enough to live this kind of life. And I think the best thing for me to do right now is to kind of give back to the Filipino people. And so that's why I decided to go to government. And I wanted to go to government after college because I feel like if I go to corporate kasi hindi na ako makakaalis. Parang gano'n. Na parang,
Yeah.
I'll get
Sarap
used to
eh.
the life.
The
Yeah, I'll get used to
Shamford
the life.
breakfast buffet lifestyle.
Uh-huh. Exactly. So parang might as well now do it now while I still live in my parents' house, and
Yeah.
I don't have a family yet and all of that. So at least what I'm really doing is something that I want to do for the country, and it's not because I need the I need to fend for myself and take care of my own financial or um
Yeah.
family needs like that.
Gets.
Yeah.
You mentioned family. It got me to thinking na by the time our generation ish has
Mm-hmm.
kids, ideally it's all normal na to them that there's a subway, that there's all this accessible public transportation. I'm not one to like act as if I know. Well, I don't really take public transportation. Um but what's very interesting is that in the interviewing you had, you talked about how the Metro Manila subway. I wanna let's go
Mm-hmm.
to the ano
Yeah.
naman, the what specifically. I sorry, before that, right? You said you entered as an executive assistant. Is that your position now, or like what's your role now specifically?
Okay. Now, yeah, as I said, we're still figuring out the structure. So
Okay.
there's a lot. We do a lot of things. Like I have so many hats sometimes. So I'm an executive assistant to the undersecretary, and so
Okay.
with that I go to him to his meetings and then make sure I'm parang up to speed with all of his all of the projects I handle. But aside from that, I'm also a project development officer. But that's just like I'd say that's my like title in the contract. But
Yeah.
because it's very broad in terms of like
Mm-hmm.
project development, diba? So but me, I'm more on the finance side. So I still like I'm still
Oh,
on
okay.
the
Numbers.
numbers roots. Yeah, so back to my ME roots.
Yeah.
So I'm on the finance side. I work on the financial resources of the project. So make sure that I make sure that all the contractors are paid on time. I have to make sure that we stay on budget, or the
Yeah.
essentially just managing and tracking and monitoring the our finances and our budgets in relation to like our project cost and in relation to parang the yearly budget that the government gives
Yeah.
us.
Wait,
So
sorry.
I
Are
have to
you
make
the
sure,
head
yeah.
in that? Are you the head of the budget? Like what do
Um
you call this, management?
yeah, I started it in the beginning, but under railways. So there's a DOTR central
That's
finance,
wild.
but then there's also like we have our own finance team within the railways. But yeah, so
Oh, okay.
when I started, I was the only one there, and then we started hiring more people. Yeah,
Wow.
so it was a
Okay.
lot talaga to do.
Okay. You know
Mhm.
what? I don't know. Even if we're very young pa, I wouldn't say
Yeah.
that Anatay. I wouldn't say I'm surprised. Like, okay, yeah, you would be doing those type of things. Okay, sorry. Now going back. So that's your roles. A lot of roles
Yeah,
apparently.
that's just one of them. Yeah.
Okay. Basta. So Department of
Basta, yeah.
Transportation, you do a lot of stuff there. You said that the Metro Manila subway. Now let's go to the specific. I
Okay.
want to know more about the projects, especially one that I I guess syempre, it's the one that's gonna concern me. The Metro Manila subway. This is the one that it was first proposed in 1973. That's correct.
Yes, I think.
Would you
Yeah.
have an idea as to why it took almost 5 decades for us to
Huh.
reach here? Is that
Um,
really the process?
it's a lot of other factors. I can't claim to be like an expert on the whole history of that.
Okay, okay.
I just know that yun nga, the very first proposal of a subway was like 40, 50 years ago, and um I think a lot of it has got to do with parang after that it was just a lot of planning and a lot of like drawings and presentations, but not really like actual
Yeah,
implementation. So
yeah.
um yeah, I think it was just more planning, like everyone was just planning, without actually wanting to implement something. So
Oh, and is it like the need of it is bigger now? Kasi 40 years ago, wala. Sobrang, I mean, I can only imagine what Katipunan would or Commonwealth, diba? What it would look like, how the Philippines that existed 40 years ago. It's very different. Especially
mm,
transportation needs. It's very different from the one that exists today. How come like what's different now and it's finally being implemented? I mean, sorry, not
yeah.
implement. I mean, like, there are constructions happening na and stuff.
Yeah, I guess somewhere along the way from when it was first proposed, the priorities of the government really kind of shifted. Um,
Okay.
I guess in terms of transportation, for example, you would notice na ever since we've really been pushing for road based or parang vehicle car based transportation. So
Yeah.
we've been building a lot of highways, we've been building a lot of like additional roads and all
Oh
of that.
yeah.
But that's not I guess that's not the most efficient type of
Uh-huh.
transportation. It's also not the most inclusive. So and it just leads to more congestion because people just keep on buying cars and then the cars just fill the road. So it's not, again, it wasn't very efficient, but that was the priorities before. And I think because of the build program currently, that was the only time when we really tried to when we really like shed a light on the need
Yeah.
for transportation, and not just road based transportation but also like rail lines, airports even, and even ports, all of that. So it's a really big focus and push um, from our economic managers, the government economic managers, to focus on transportation
Yeah.
at this current times.
So
Yeah.
now there's the light has been shed. Okay, we gotta build. We gotta
Yeah.
na hindi pang kotse lang, not just the
Mm-mm.
roads. How does that work then? Na you have Metro Manila, which I would say isn't nearly one of the best well planned out cities. Like the roads, it's
Yeah.
magabo. It's the reality
Mm.
that we deal with. How does it work there? You've studied you said you've studied the transportation like systems of different countries when you travel. Where do you begin with making the like Metro Manila subway plans?
Yeah, it's a long process. I think very, I guess, the jumping off point of not just the subway but all our projects right now is it was a transport network study, or road parent transport roadmap study, that
Okay.
was commissioned by JICA, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, back in,
Oh, okay.
I think, I'm not very familiar with the dates. Probably like 24. I think it was 2014 that they updated it. Like in 2017, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken. But essentially, that transport plan laid out all of the potential projects that we have to
Mm-hmm.
undertake. And then, so based on that transport plan, we get the projects that we have to implement from there. And from that transport plan, you create a feasibility study. So the feasibility study is done to make sure that the projects that you want to implement is, feasible. So you
Yeah.
look at the potential ridership of the corridor. So it's a study on where it's really gonna pass, um, and how it's gonna interconnect with other rail lines. And then it's a kind of a long process, but
Yeah, I can
you look at
imagine.
the technical feasibility of the, I guess, the right of way. You look at the financial feasibility, not so much pala, but you look at the economic feasibility. So
Sorry, what's the
um
difference between financial feasibility and
okay,
economic feasibility?
so for financial feasibility, you look into if you get a return on investment on the
Mm.
money that you put
Okay.
into the system. So your capital expenditure, if you can recoup that and have a return based on actual cash that you get. So for example, you get you get your revenues from ridership, from the fare revenues, from non-fare revenue. So you have to see if the revenues you get is enough to recoup the investment. But
Yeah. And
for
maintain, diba?
Yeah, and maintain. But for the government, that's not the primary consideration, I'd say. Also because it is the government, so we do have we do have access to cheaper financing. We do have we have budget to be able to
Yeah.
parang profit isn't our main goal essentially.
Mm.
Economic feasibility on the other hand is to make sure that it's um the entirety of the, it's kind of difficult to explain, but to make
Sorry.
sure that no, okay lang. Uh hi the parang all your resources, 'di ba you put kasi resources into building a railway,
Yeah.
that these resources would have a return on the economic benefit naman without sacrificing economic costs. So different yung economic cost and economic benefit kasi if it's a bit technical, but economic cost is, for example, includes opportunity cost.
Okay.
So if we didn't put our money into this project,
What else could it have done?
what else could it have
Gets ko
done? So
yun.
that's a cost. Other economic benefits naman would be for example, um time travel savings. So
Yeah.
there's a methodology in how you can put a value into how much people can save because you've put in this transportation system. That's one. Another economic benefit would be the vehicle operating costs. So you save on vehicle operating, your car operations, all of that,
So
because
it's all the other
you'll be using it.
factors.
Yeah. So
Mm,
essentially, like
okay.
the investment, the economic investment as a whole, you evaluate if it's feasible economically, if we can if it will improve the lives of everyone in the
Gets.
country essentially. Yeah.
Gets. Okay, so now this Metro Manila subway, this is gonna be underground. Am I right to assume
Yes,
that?
yes, yes.
Okay. Where does this go? Like, how could
Okay.
you? No. There's no need to really like go.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Dig into
Um
the. But where does it pass? How does it work?
Okay, so this one, this is this will the subway will pass through the, I guess, the biggest CBDs, the central business districts in Manila. So it starts out in Valenzuela, so somewhere in the north, and then it passes through the North Avenue station, so somewhere in Trinoma, and then a couple of
One
more stations
existing station
down.
already, or is this
Not yet,
all
not yet.
new built stuff?
All new built stuff, but
Okay.
the station in like North Avenue, it will be pretty close to the common station that they're currently building. Like if you pass by, it's pretty traffic now because they're
Oh
building the
yeah,
common
that's the
station.
subway. The reason
No, that's the
why.
common
Oh,
station
that's
of
something
like
else.
MRT3 LRT, but it's gonna be connected to the subway station.
Okay.
it's
Okay.
it's connected to the subway station, and then it'll also pass through like it'll pass through Katipunan near my place. It'll pass through Ortigas and BGC, and then
Okay.
all the way until like Naiya. So there,
Oh,
Naiya Terminal 1, and I think Terminal 3, sorry, Naiya Terminal 3, and it kind of spurs to Naiya, but it also goes all the way to Bikutan.
how many
Yeah.
stations there are? Is it? Am I correct? There are 17 stations in this one.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
17 stations.
Well, my question though with the subway, because right now the LRTs, it's always super crowded, right? Like
Yeah.
um it's not designed to hold that many people. How did you guys take this into consideration? Like it's still in Metro Manila, although it's going to, like, I feel like the sheer number of people is so many that even if there's another train that's available to use, like who's to say
Mhm.
that, like, how did you guys plan, like put this into planning, that factor of just the number of people who are going to be using it?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really us, I guess. It was mostly the people who made the transport plan, and I think they also did this for the feasibility study. But in the
Okay.
transport plan, it's really it's a long I guess a network. You study the entire network, so you don't study just a specific project or a specific alignment, but you study the entire network by getting OD data, so origin destination data. So you do like household surveys and all of that. You ask people, okay, where from your place, where do
Where do
you
you
go,
go?
yeah, how often, what time, and all of that. And from there, from all of these information, that's where you can build um the network itself, and where do you think the crowded corridors are, and that's where you put the transportation systems with the biggest capacity. And based on and
Yes.
compared to all other transportation systems, the trains talaga will have the biggest capacity for
Yeah, it's the most
passengers. So
practical kasi even it's like
mhm.
it beats the bus capacity.
Yeah,
Obviously, the
yeah,
car is the most takes up a lot of space. Most of the time, it's just one person inside. I'm curious though. It's great. You can just imagine. All I can imagine with building these stuff, subways, diba? New railways. It's all positive stuff, all benefits. But I'm curious though. It the thought crossed my mind. Has there been any pushback? I would imagine like jeeps, buses, grab. Because this is okay. You can ride the subway, you can ride the train, so that you don't need to be on the road anymore, so that you don't need to drive a car anymore. I can imagine like grab. They're gonna lose business with this. Like, the like everybody uses grab. Everybody, because there's not that many options and available if you have to if you have you have to move around the city.
yeah.
Has there been any pushback when it comes to the projects that you guys are doing?
Okay. I guess there has definitely been some pushback, but not really in from the other transportation modes.
Oh, okay.
Parang I think
There's no ano naman gang wars happening there or something.
na naman,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
The ideal transportation system naman talaga is that the train isn't the last ano yun? Parang it isn't the last mile way of transportation. So if you want to really like rationalize the entire transportation system in the Philippines, it should be parang you take a train on the most
The nearest
on the main
station.
streets, the main parang yeah,
Okay.
the main streets. And then where you have to go though, if you don't if your destination isn't really on the main street, it's that's where like the jeepneys come in, that's where I guess
That's where they
the taxis
should.
come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, parang that's why we were also building a lot of like intermodal facilities, where in stations there's like a bus station, there's a jeep terminal and all of that, like a tricycle terminal, para once you get down the station, nandun na lahat ng bus stops, and then they can take you to where you need to go, where you actually need to go, na that isn't necessarily serviced by a train. Parang I think it's a win-win situation na it's rationalized and it's easier to navigate
Yeah.
the Manila as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the
Yep.
biggest challenge that you'd have to face in your job?
Hmm. I guess the biggest challenge is really that there's so much to do with so little time. Work gets pretty busy, and you
Uh-huh.
kind of don't know like what to prioritize and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think it's really just we need more people, more resources to be able to achieve what we want to achieve.
But you feel like you're in the right path. You're you're headed towards goals that you set, which are like, you know, with the right
Yeah.
intention. It's just that like with what you have now, the resources, it's a little more challenging.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're getting there. Yun nga, as I said, parang we're not just building
Nata-traffic
the
lang.
rail lines. Oo, dami lang obstacles, ganun.
Yeah.
But we're getting there, I think. And I believe naman in our team that they'll be able to accomplish what we set out
Yeah.
to accomplish. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. When I asked you, kasi what's the challenging thing about your job? Then I when I asked it, I thought to myself then, back when live events were still a thing, honestly, I
Mm-hmm.
would the hosting like weddings or debuts, proms, I would
Yeah.
think I think the traffic was the worst part. It's the you have to go there
It
extra
is.
early kasi you can't afford to be a minute late, diba, or anything like that. Now I want to go outside. The last few things I want to ask outside the
Mm-hmm.
job naman. You said that
Okay.
there's a lot of things to deal with, a lot of challenges. It's kind of, I can imagine it's kind of like traffic, that there's always a lot of things you have, there's so much you want to do, but there isn't that much time, there isn't that much resources, there isn't that much space on the road, diba? There's a lot of
Yeah.
traffic comes in, heavy traffic comes in different forms. How do you individually, how do you deal with those? You have so many projects, you have so much expectations also. How do you personally deal with that and making sure you get the job done, and at the same time like make sure you still take care of yourself?
Yeah. I guess for me personally, like I have learned to really like prioritize, I guess, like do like manage the time, try as much as possible to be able to manage my time,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to work on what I need to do, at specific points in time. But then at the same time, I always try to make time for myself, like time for like just watching, like sitting in front of the Netflix and just watching, like, or reading or all of that. And I think that keeps me sane, kasi like, or
Yeah.
working out, or even like, my sister and I, we would still go to Celeb and like
Oh
rent out the
yeah, and you'd
studio to
still
dance,
dance.
ganon. Yeah, so parang it's really like just a sanity break for both of us. Na outside, parang in the studio, or at like in my room, or all of that, like parang all the stress doesn't exist. At least I get time for myself,
So
something
you
like
you
that.
have a physical space that when you're in that space, like that celeb one is actually really great. For me, I got to do
Yeah.
this. I can relate. There are times there's a basketball court in front of our house. So what I do, I go in the off peak time. So mga
Yeah.
like in the morning before lunch, like I'd go shoot by myself. I find it
Mhm.
therapeutic also. Because when you say around Netflix, for example, I've experienced this then eh. Like even if I'm gonna watch an episode of Modern Family, I don't really get to relax. It's kind of like I'm just stressed watching. Because even if I try to get my mind off of work or anything that's giving me anxiety at the moment, even while you're
Yeah.
watching and you're kind of laughing, far in the back of your head, it's like, after these 20 minutes, Gago, you have to go back. You have to go back to the real world.
Yeah.
How do you sort of, besides the physical space, do you have any other techniques? Or has it always been a thing that once you set your mind, okay, tapos na ako magtrabaho, this is working time, it just shuts off. It just parang just like a switch that just gets flipped. Ganun ba?
Most of the time, it's like that. Like I really try to make it a point na parang when I say I'm done with work, I'm done with work. Like unless something urgent comes up, or parang someone calls or whatever. Like when I say I'm done, like be it like 6 p.m. if it's a good day, or like
Mhm.
8 p.m. ganon. Like I
What's
just
a bad day though? What's a bad day like?
well, last week I slept at 1 for something, but
Meaning you were working up until
yeah, yeah,
1.
yeah.
There are times kasi I
Yeah.
sleep at 1 because of work, pero parang because that means I started at 9 p.m. for example.
No, no, I start at 8 a.m. in the mornings. And then I know. But I do as much as possible, like try to make it a point not to. Well,
Mhm.
in work, kasi we communicate through Microsoft Teams, and
Uh-huh.
there's a thing called quiet hours that you don't get notified. So I set
Ooh.
mine's pretty late. Mine's at 11 nga, but
Uh-uh.
at least after 11 I don't get notified for anything work
Yeah.
related. So
You need that. You
yeah, yeah,
need
yeah.
that
Exactly. You
talaga.
need, you need those types of things.
Man, I'm learning that more talaga now in the pandemic na like before kasi it was easier, 'di ba?
Yeah,
Once you're out of the studio, once you're out of the office, 'di ba? Wala, hindi ka na magtatrabaho. Pero iba
exactly.
na kasi kung yung kwarto mo, yung studio mo, like if
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
really your working place. More on the like the psyche or the work ethic behind this. How was it? Did you feel like a big transition? Kasi you came from I think anybody that comes from a big school who comes from this structure, you have these set classes, and then after this sem you have your next sem, like there's that sense of progression eh?
Yeah,
Even if it's just school, parang I think it plays a huge role in your in mentally how you go about with life, that there are steps that you're taking. And what's unique in your situation is that you were really one of the top. Like academically, like there's no denying that your grades were really one of the highest. But now in the real world, there aren't grades. Like
yeah,
the most, I guess the closest you can have to compare to that would be money. But even then, money isn't really ano naman eh. Like it's not the main thing. Like, okay, if this person has more money than the other, doesn't mean he ranks higher in the life, diba?
yeah.
Did you feel like an adjustment? Sorry, not transition, like an adjustment in terms of you were top of the class, and then now it's like it's a whole new world.
Hmm. Thinking about how to answer that. I think
Go down. Take your time.
definitely, yeah, definitely there was an adjustment. Parang there's always gonna be that adjustment from the structure in Ateneo to work in general. I would compare it nga, like aside from being like an startup, like DOTR would be like this big, well, the railway sector is like this really really big org na parang
Mm,
our real projects are really like projects talaga. That was my mindset initially,
yeah.
like okay, you have the finance team, which is us, then you have like Ano
Oo.
ba, you have a logistics team and that's
Wala lang
like
kayo,
everything
ano,
else
mga
parang ganun.
blast. Profile picture
Oo,
blast. Wala
wala
kayo
naman
nun.
gano'n. But it's really project management kasi. So, but on a huge
Um,
scale where syempre more people, more money is involved,
yeah.
and a lot of things are riding on your projects talaga. So that
Yes.
I think because that was my mindset, it wasn't so much of a shock. Na parang like I accepted na I wouldn't have as much structure. Like when I entered, I knew
You
that there
expected
wasn't
that? Mm.
yeah, parang not as much structure. Like I have a lot of workmates kasi who came from corporate and then went to DOTR, went with us, and they're looking for the structure. And for me, na parang I don't since I'm kind of like I didn't come from corporate.
Yeah. And this is your
Like
first job, right?
yeah, this is my first job, so I was like I'm kind of used to it na now. But
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
there's still an adjustment in terms
Of
of
course.
like parang I was the youngest when I entered, and so it was kind of difficult to find your voice. Parang even if parang they asked me to do so much stuff, I still didn't know like what to do, when to speak up, and all of that. So it's there's still a learning curve talaga that you have
Yeah,
to
like just like any job
go through.
naman.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like it was sort of like an org structure. You'd think kasi na what we do in the classroom is training for what we do in the real world, diba? Work, ganun. But then
yeah,
this one, it's more your job. You would say it's more of the sorry, I'm not sure about you, but in college, kasi I would like divide my when it's time for me to work, it's either work ACADS, work org. So would
yeah.
you say like your job is more of the org side of work, more than like classroom of like long tests, studying, memorizing?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Kasi, yun nga, I think, in general, I think even if you're in project management and corporate, it's how it works. Eh. Parang you have, like you make Gantt charts. Like, you
Oh
make
wow,
Gantt
I've
charts, you
not
make
heard that.
timelines, you
Yeah.
have, yeah, so it's a lot. It's what you do, it's what you look at, compared to like math. Like, I sometimes I do math. Like I've studied a few models here and there, but it's
Yeah.
more management of not an event
Gets
but an
gets.
entire project. So that's
Uh,
where um we really
okay.
like focus on. Yeah.
Do you see yourself doing this long term?
Um hmm, I guess depends. Because I have a plan, like
Okay.
after probably like next year I'll be going to masters. Like I would want to go masters na after like
Oh.
I even parang my initial plan nga entering was like, oh, I'll stay for like 2 years and then
It's been
I'll go for
almost three
masters.
years, no?
Uh,
In a few
two and a
months.
half, I think, two and a
Okay.
half.
Yeah.
So there, yeah. But so by next year, I think I'll go masters first. But definitely, I still want to be involved in general with
Please.
development. So yeah, parang well, I'm thinking maybe like uh international organizations like ADB, ganon. So because they're partners in some of our projects, and I've seen how they work, and so although and then after that, once I've learned all that I can, maybe I would go back to government then. But
Wow.
look at different experiences then
That's
after
great.
this. Yeah.
That's great. Wow. This feels so weird. I feel like the last the long conversation we had was kind of probably your college pa eh. My gosh, and what we're
Yeah,
talking
it's
about
probably in
now.
college pa.
Wow. But anyway, last na I want to ask. So for
Mm,
the everyday citizen, the everyday commuting
yes.
Filipino struggling through what the systems that we have right now, what can we expect in the near future?
Yeah, definitely in the near future, more rail lines and
Mhm.
more just a better transportation system in general that addresses people's needs. Hopefully, less traffic, less congestion in the streets because of this. I guess what our goal really is to not just and it's not just parang the everyday commuter who's already existing currently riding trains now, who will have more options, but there will also be like you and me before who wouldn't ride trains. Parang
Mhm.
the trains will be an option now, a transportation option
Yes.
because it's more accessible to
It's
everyone,
because it's
and
better.
yeah, it's better na. It's faster pa. So it's more parang we move from being riding in cars, being stuck in traffic to just like going from station to station and all of that.
Yeah.
So ideally that's the
Yeah.
plan.
There's this quote I saw. I'm sure you guys saw it. That I don't know if it's like the country's success. Like it's a good country if the poor ride cars, but if the rich ride public
Yeah.
transportation. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
something
I've
I
heard that
really
also.
am looking forward to. So thanks again for your time, Anna, and for all your
Thank
work
you.
and all your patience. I hope our next conversation, if it's in a few years' time, I hope nabawasan na yung traffic na by then.
Oo, nasa train na tayo, nakasakay na tayo sa train.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah,
Anna.
thank you for having me.